Hi guys, today we're going to talk about adjective clauses, or sometimes they're called relative clauses. I'll try to make it quick, but there's a lot, as you could tell from your chapter. But I'm just going to talk about the things that I've taught and that I know have been taught in ESL classes. So adjective clauses are dependent clauses. So this is going back to complex sentences. Right? So they're part of a complex sentence. They need to be attached to an independent clause because they are a dependent clause. Usually when we think of complex sentences, we think of adverb clauses, like because it's cold, because it was cold, I wore a coat. But these are adjective clauses. And so what they are is they act as adjectives. They basically identify or add information to the nouns they describe. And unlike regular adjectives that come before the nouns they describe or after a linking verb, adverb clauses come right after the noun. And that's the important thing, because often students, when they learn adjective clauses or try to use them, they will put them in different places in the sentence. It's hard for them to remember that they come directly after the noun they describe. Okay? And so teaching adverb clauses revolve really around two things. The adjective clause pronouns, which I put them here, whom, and I deleted my who, but that's okay, I'll just say it. Who, whom, so the object form of who, which, that, whose, when, and where. And your book mentions that when and where are actually act as adverb adjective clauses, but we just teach them right along with adjective clauses because getting too specific like that is just, they work the same way. It's just unnecessary information for students. Okay, so working adjective clauses around that pronoun. So adjective clauses always begin with the pronoun, and that pronoun is renaming what it's describing. So teaching them goes around the adjective clause pronoun and then what that pronoun is doing in the sentence. So is that pronoun acting as the subject of the adjective clause, as the object of the adjective clause, as the object of the preposition in that adjective clause, as well as what can that adjective clause pronoun refer to, right? So who, whom, and that can refer to people. That and which refers to animals and things. Okay, so generally we start with adjective clauses with the adjective clause pronoun used as the subject of the adjective clause. And so remember, the important thing is they're adjectives. They identify the noun. So if I said to you, I thank the woman, what would you ask me? Well, what woman? Which woman are you talking about? So we need to identify woman. So your book talks about how adjective clauses can identify a subject or a direct object, indirect object. Well, yeah, they identify nouns. So I tell my students, because sometimes students have trouble with what's a direct object, what's an indirect object. It doesn't matter. What noun in this sentence needs to be identified? Woman. Okay, so that adjective clause is going to go after woman. Okay, it doesn't matter what the noun is doing in the sentence right now. Okay, so what do we know about this woman? What extra information can we add to it to make that adjective clause an identifier? Well, she helped me. Okay, so we have to start with an adjective clause pronoun. So we're talking about a woman, she. So we use who. Okay, so get rid of the she and then put that adjective clause pronoun after woman. I thank the woman who, and then we have our verb and object, who helped me. I thank the woman who helped me. Okay, so besides putting the adjective clause in the wrong position of the sentence, Another common mistake that second language learners make is not omitting the pronoun that refers to the noun. So they add the adjective clause pronoun, but keep the other pronouns. So you'll see things like, I thank the woman who she helped me. Okay? No, I thank the woman who helped me. That adjective clause pronoun is taking the place of what it's referring to. Okay, so what if I said to you, the man helped me? What would you ask? Which man? Which man helped you? Okay, so now we know, where does our adjective clause have to go? It has to go right after the noun that we need more information about. We need more information about man. Well, what do we know about him? What identifies him? I met him last night. Okay? Now my information, I met him. I is the subject, and that's going to become the adjective clause. Him is going to become the adjective clause pronoun. The man whom I met last night helped me. The man whom I met last night helped me. Why did I use whom? Because I is the subject of the adjective clause. I met him. But here the object comes to the beginning of the adjective clause because the adjective clause pronoun always comes first. Okay, so that can get confusing for students. And that word whom is confusing because we don't use it really in speaking. So that's written grammar. When you're speaking, we could say the man who I met last night helped me. Even though who is a subject, doesn't matter. It's informal speaking. The man that I met last night helped me. But what do we usually say in speaking? So when the adjective clause pronoun is the object of the adjective clause, you can delete it. Because a dependent clause, I'm not going to say all dependent clauses, but a dependent adjective clause needs a subject, it needs a verb, it doesn't need an object. So you could say or write, the man I met last night helped me, and get rid of that adjective clause pronoun, because if it's not the subject of the adjective clause, you don't need it. So that's a lot of information. So again, the main mistakes the students make are putting the adjective clause in the wrong position, using a double pronoun, and then just because there's so much, there's rules here, okay? So it's not like prepositions where all this random memorization, but it's a lot of rules. The pronouns, the different ways the pronouns can be used, the different pronouns that can be used, deleting pronouns. So it's a lot. And we go over all this in grammar, and then it's reinforced in writing classes because they need to write complex sentences in writing. And then they're also mentioned in more advanced reading classes because you'll talk about sentence structure and what things are doing in the sentence and what things are referring to in the sentence in reading class. She's the woman. Okay, we got this now. What woman? We need to identify or give more information about her. So what do we know about her? He gave flowers to her. Adjective clause pronoun used as the object of the preposition. Students hate these. Why do they hate them? They're complicated and they never hear them. Okay? So what identifies woman? Her. So that needs to become the adjective clause pronoun. Notice we have a preposition in front of it. Prepositions are part of prepositional phrases. They have objects after them. So her becomes whom. You take the whole prepositional phrase, move it to the front of the adjective clause. She is the woman to whom he gave flowers. She is the woman to whom he gave flowers. Now, does anyone talk like that? No. No. Okay. So what do we do in informal speaking? She's the woman who he gave flowers to. We strand that preposition at the end of the sentence. When I was in high school, I was taught that wasn't okay. Now it's fine. Grammar's evolved. Everybody says that. She's the woman who he gave flowers to. She's the woman that he gave flowers to. You can then, the pronoun becomes the object, so you can get rid of it. She's the woman he gave flowers to. Okay? And just delete that preposition. But that's a tough one for students because we don't walk around saying, she is the woman to whom he gave flowers. One more thing with that, only who and which can follow a preposition. No, only whom and which can follow a preposition. Who and that cannot. See what I mean? There are rules, but there's so much. This is a lot for students to take in. So, I mean, it's introduced in grammar and reinforced through reading and writing, and something that just takes them a really long time to internalize. Okay, so when do we use whose? Whose is used when talking about possession. That's the boy. What boy? What are you talking about? You met his parents. That's the boy whose parents you met. When talking about places, you can use that and which because places are things, but you can also use where. The house is old. What house? Which one are you talking about? The house where we live is old. Now, what if you wanted to use which or that instead of where? That's fine, but this is what you're going to have to do. The house in which, right? Because we live in houses. The house in which we live is old. Okay? Or you can't say in that. It's got to be in which. Or the house which we live in, strand that preposition at the end, is old. The house that we live in is old. Are we done yet? This is a lot. We got one more. When. I'll never forget the day. What day? What day are we talking about? I met you then. I met you then on that day. So we can use when and say, I'll never forget the day when I met you. If you want to use that and which, you can, but you got to add that preposition. Oh, it's all coming back. Remember, on a day. I'll never forget the day on which I met you. See? Whew, my mind's exploding. I'll never forget the day which I met you on. I'll never forget the day that I met you. Yeah, you don't need on there. Yeah, I'll never forget the day on which I met you. I'll never forget the day that I met you. I actually have to look this up. Why can't I do that? Life as a noun in time is somewhat different. A preposition is used preceding which. Otherwise, it's omitted. Oh, your teacher had to look in a book for something. That's how complicated this is getting. Yeah, so if you use which on which, that you can omit it. I'll never forget the day that I met you. Or I'll never forget the day when I met you. Okay, other things that will come up with adjective clauses is punctuation. Do you put commas around it? You put commas around it if the adjective clause is unnecessary for identifying the noun. You do not use commas if it is necessary for identifying the noun. So if I said, the teacher is working hard. Which teacher? Which teacher are you talking about? The teacher who is in the classroom is working hard. That adjective clause is necessary to identify teacher. But if I said, Kelly Coronado, who is working hard, is in the classroom, we don't need any more information to identify Kelly Coronado. That is just extra added information, so we need commas around it. Commas in writing, pause in speaking. Kelly Coronado, who is in the classroom, is working hard. Okay, your book mentions a few times that you can reduce relative clauses when there is a present participle, a past participle in a passive sentence, and an adjective followed by a prepositional phrase including past participle adjectives. I've never taught that. That's really going far. I'm sure there are some programs that do. Usually we teach what I just showed you, because those are the most widely used. If there's time, we may get to that it can be reduced when there is be with the progressive, okay? Because that's very common. For example, the man who is talking to my sister is from Hawaii. The man talking to my sister is from Hawaii. Okay, so that may come up in class, is taking away, you can take away the subject, relative clause, pronoun, and the be verb and reduce it to just the present participle, the ing. But the others we don't. Because again, just what I all just showed you is a lot of information. Remember, less is more. So just to get students to do that and use that, so there's going to be fill in the blank, writing sentences, and then you have to try to get them to use it naturally, and it will be reinforced in writing and reading class, and I'll show you those in a minute. But just that is a lot. So taking them further at all, further can be learned more organically, okay? As they read, get into higher level reading, they'll see more complex relative clauses used. Okay, so in a writing class, adjective clauses would be reinforced, and this is like at the high, in the intermediate to the advanced levels, so they'd be reinforced when going over complex sentences. So in writing classes, we talk about how there are 3 types of sentences in English: simple, compound, and complex. And we talk about it a lot and go over how to structure these sentences. And for complex, we mostly talk about adverb clauses and then adjective clauses. And then they'll have different sentences to look at, and they have to identify, is it simple, compound, complex, or what kind of complex, identifying errors with complex sentences. And then when I have my students write, I always talk about sentence variety. I believe I've talked to you about this before, that you need to use simple, compound, and complex in academic writing. Just because it's more academic. It doesn't mean it's wrong if you just use simple sentences, but that's not academic writing. Just like you need variety in the vocabulary you use. And then when we edit, I'll have them highlight the complex sentences they've written and then share them with a class. So that's a natural way at the more intermediate and advanced levels to get them to use adverb clauses and adjective clauses in writing. And then it reinforces all that they've learned in grammar. Now this is really nice. I was really excited when we started to use this reading book. And there is a chapter, or a part within a chapter, that talks about reduced relative clauses. Okay, and it talks about adding variety, that writers use this. This is one type of complex sentence. And then they talk about those reductions that aren't really discussed much in grammar class because it's just too much. So see how things will come up later more organically. Okay, so, and then it shows you examples like noun plus verb ing, to understand reduced relative clauses with the pattern. You can produce the full clause by making these changes. So, for example, only a small percentage of immigrants arriving in the United States. So that's one of those reduced relative clauses. And they're saying to understand it, you can add that that relative clause pronoun. Okay, they're saying drop the ing. Only a small percentage of immigrants who arrived in the United States. Okay, Here's one with the past participle. Today's immigrants are following the patterns established by earlier immigrants. Okay, there's another one, noun plus being plus past participle. I don't even think your book mentioned that. So see how there's so many. We can't possibly mention all these reductions in grammar class, but they're reinforced as they read more. So it can be seen kind of like grammar development as well as vocabulary development. So the last example, many of the drugs, which drugs? Being used in medicine today. Okay, so that one is, you've got being plus the past participle making the adjective clause. Okay, and then this is really nice. I like these exercises where they take sentences that are from the actual articles that the students read and ask them to highlight the reduced relative clauses. Okay, and then I had them actually then point to what is the noun that they're describing, right? The major problem facing healthcare systems. So the adjective clause is facing healthcare systems, and it's describing the problems. So when I'm teaching adjective clauses, I always start with a game. And the game is called Do You Like Your Neighbor? So I put all the students in a circle, and this one's fun for adults or children. Everyone can do this. We always have fun with this. Put the students in a circle, and everybody has a chair except for one person. So one person starts in the middle, and they go to one of their classmates and they ask, do you like your neighbor? And you can write this on the board, right? Do you like your neighbor? Question mark on the board. And then write, no, I only like people, and then blank. So they have to fill that in with an adjective clause. So one student's in the middle. They walk to another student and ask, do you like your neighbor? That student responds with, no, I only like people, and then fill in an adjective clause, like, I only like people who are wearing jeans today. And then everyone who is wearing jeans has to stand up and try and then find a new place to sit, including the person in the middle. So whoever doesn't get to a chair in time is the person in the middle. Okay, so then they run around and it's fun. And then that person goes again. They ask another classmate, do you like your neighbor? No, I only like people who wear glasses. Or I only like people who are from Asia. Okay, depending on who, so whatever the demographics are in your class, they'll have different things to say. But that's usually a fun way to introduce the form. You're introducing the relative clause pronoun as the subject of the relative clause, and it's teaching them in a fun way that we're identifying. So I only like people, which people. What is the purpose of adjective clauses? It's to identify a person, place, or thing. So they're starting to understand the point and forming them in a fun way. Of course, adjective clauses are a great place to bring in pictures, and you can bring in your own pictures, have them bring in pictures, bring in magazine pictures, and get them in groups and have them identify or describe things that are happening in the picture using adjective clauses, right? So the girl who is in the car looks like she's having fun. The camel whose head is in the car looks hungry. Okay, those of you who teach children, I know I look ridiculous. I'm aware of this, okay? But I thought of a couple games that my daughter likes to play with me that would actually work really well for teaching children adjective clauses. So any of you who have kids might recognize this as headbands This is Disney headbands. So actually, regular headbands is great for ESL students. But Disney headbands, so you're a character and you have to guess who your character is. And you ask either who am I or who am I not? And then the other person, if you ask who am I, they have to give you cards that say who you are. And if you ask who am I not, they have to give you cards that you're not. Okay, so for example, if I'm Tinkerbell and my partner has toy, you are a character who is not a toy. You are a character who's not bad. You are a character who is good, right? Tinkerbell's the best. She's the best. You're a character who has two hands. So you get the point. Can I take this off now? Yeah, you get the point. But headbands, Disney headbands, maybe regular headbands. I'd have to look at it. I don't have it here at home. I just have, because regular headbands does, like, you could be food or an animal. You can be different things. The other game I have that would work really well is Guess Who, right? So your partner, you have to guess who your partner has by asking questions like, does your person wear glasses? Does your person have red hair? But you could change it to adjective clauses like, do you have a person, so you'd have to add questions to it, who wears glasses? Do you have a person who has red hair? So those would be two games that you could use with children. So my children love these games. They're 6. So those of you who teach younger children could use those. Okay, so aside from playing games to introduce or to practice the form in fun way, you can give them sentences to try to get the form, like the ones I showed you in the beginning, right? Like, I saw the man. Well, which man? Okay, well, what information do we have about him? He was walking across the street. I saw the man who was walking across the street. And having them put sentences together like that will help them to work on don't repeat a pronoun. Don't say who he was walking down the street. And to help them practice, okay, that adjective clause has to come right after the noun that it describes. Okay, you can have them make statements about people. Okay, so for example, what types of leaders do you like? So put them in groups and have their groups think of qualities for good leaders. I like leaders who are honest. Okay, or what types of teachers do you like? I like teachers who are easy to talk to. Okay, so the groups come up with lists of qualities using adjective clauses, or you can write that around the room and then have them share their qualities with the class. You can have them read passages with adjective clauses and then have them answer questions using adjective clauses. You can have them describe their families and what are qualities of their family members. I loved how in your last demonstrations, a couple of you who work with children had them draw pictures of a monster. I'm learning so much about working with children from you guys. But you could have them draw their families and then describe the qualities of their families using adjectives clauses. My mother is a woman who loves taking care of us. You could have them draw pictures of their house. If you have foreign students, draw pictures of their countries or their towns, and then describe them using adjective clauses. For older students, write paragraphs describing their family, describing their towns using adjective clauses. Okay, and finally, you can definitely work on editing and bringing in mistakes and adjective clauses and have them work on editing. Okay, your book also has a bunch of good exercises for students to do too. So, with that, I think I'm finally done with this video.